difficult is it for black women to get mass media approval? I tackle that with my next guest, actresses Salli Richardson Whitfield, Essence Atkins, Tatiana Ali, and Wendy Davis. Hey, folks, glad you're on the show.
Thank you for having us.
All right, then, this whole notion of images, and when you hear these attacks on the First Lady, and I read some message boards, and they talk about, you know, how she looks. They talk about, you know, in terms of her hips, talk about her legs. And so you have all these attacks on her. I don't recall folks attacking Laura Bush or Hillary Clinton or even Nancy Reagan in the same way.
Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think what needs to happen is America needs to see a wider variety of black women in the media. And that's part of the problem. You know, when you look at Hollywood, there tends to be, they tend to lean towards light-skinned black women. And I think this is a real problem in our country because when they see brown-skinned women on television, they're just not used to it. And many women in the African-American community are beautiful brown-skinned women.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, they were dogging her arms.
But
her tall arms.
Because they feel like they can.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that as black women, we're just not seen enough. Light, dark, it doesn't matter.
Period.
Yeah,
No,
what's happening is that people are being introduced to black femininity through Michelle Obama, and there really is this otherness happening. Oh my, and her style, not to mention the fact that we do tear apart women in the media. I mean, no matter what, you're going to talk about somebody's weight.
Let's also talk about just as the responsibility that we ourselves as a community, as a society, tear apart each other in general. I mean, if you read any news story and then you look at the comments underneath, most often than not, they are horrendous and very toxic. So I don't think that it's particular to Michelle Obama or any one particular person. I think that the community is very venomous.
But I do think that it has been open season on Michelle Obama because she is a black woman.
Hold on, I want Salli to say that again.
They're just going to have to get used to that we have a fine sister in the house. Absolutely. She's going to show her athletic arms, and she doesn't have to hide her body like other former first ladies.
Right.
No disrespect that we're not as young and youthful as in shape. So there you go.
Absolutely.
And they're going to hate on it. They can't like it.
Now, when we talk about this whole notion of images, it's also a question of who actually controls that. And so, Tatiana, you know, you made it clear in terms of maximizing the internet, creating your own content as a way of saying, I'm going to be in control of my own destiny. You know, why was it so important for you to do that versus waiting for somebody else to say, okay, here's a show?
Well, other than the fact that you'd wait forever, I think that, you know, you were saying this earlier, there really is a necessity for a diverse depictions of blackness and of people of color. We don't fall into just one category, and there seemed to be that was lacking. I want to help create new archetypes. You know, back in the day, as a black actress, you could only play somebody's mammy, right? Then the archetypes have gone on and on and on. It's almost like a slow evolution, a very slow progression. So we have to create our own content in order to create new archetypes. That's what's happening with Michelle Obama. This is a new archetype. This is a new type of black woman that a lot of the country and the world, they didn't even know existed. They didn't even know existed.
Right.
But right now in the business in general, there is a recession of black TV shows, black films. We are not working. So there was a time when, you know, when we had Love Jones coming out, we had different kind of movies. And now there is nothing out there for us. And it's very important that we create our own. We don't worry about the film company, you know, the big studios putting films out for us because they're not going to do it.
And how have each of you tried to expand your brand, if you will, to other areas that you can actually control? So how are you doing that beyond just in front of the camera?
Well, for me, I started directing my show, Eureka, and now my goal for the last few years is to start doing some indie films, and that's where we have a little more control. I have a film called I Will Follow coming out, and it's a new organization called Affirm, which is a group of black film companies that are. It's a different way to get our films out there to the people.
To get distribution.
Yes, it has to. We have to do it ourselves now. We can't rely on them because listen, you hire the people who look like you. Well, the people who are hiring are white. They're not going to hire us, so we got to hire ourselves and work.
I think my sister and I started a production company, Hazard Entertainment. Buppies, which was a web series, was our first project, and we're production partners on our TV One show, Love That Girl. And it really is, you know, we're not a monolithic group. There are so many stories within the African American community to tell that are just simply not being told. So many, just a huge variety of points of view. It's infinite.
There are films out there being made that are not getting to the public because they're not the big comedies. They're not being, you know, you're not being shot, and those
they're not
films
being supported.
They're not being.
We
have to challenge ourselves to see better films.
And that's why I raised the point about what you did with the web, but also when I look at Facebook and Twitter, when I look at the fact that when I talked to Will Packer, when they had Twa that came out, when they did Stomp the Yard, I mean, they really focused on grassroots activism and drove it. And so I think, you know, we can talk about how it's changing, but the benefit today is that if you want to go to the other side, it's about being creative to tap into your own audience to be able to get them to see it.
You know, when you go to the offices and you knock on the doors and you're trying to get somebody to open a door for you, what they say is, well, there's no audience for this. You know, that's what happened. Buppies was actually written as a TV show, and it was at studios, and they're like, there's no audience for this. And we said, yes, there is. Yeah, how about we make a web series and we just go directly to the audience?
Directly to black people and show you.
We ended up getting 5 million views. So there shows you there was an audience.
Let's talk about the game. I mean, here's an example of a show. Asked by a so-called major network, and then BET brings it back out. 7.7 million folks this first episode. So when you see that, you know, how does that make you feel? And what does that say about, wait a minute, it's a black network, TV One's black network, black people watching, Love That Girl. Wait a minute, we now have more options than we used to have.
Absolutely. We do, but I think that there's a part of us that still is so hungry for the approval of the so-called networks, and we're still kind of clamoring for their attention and their validation. Exactly, and the Oscars and the Emmys, and I think that's a mistake. I think you can, as Tatiana said earlier, I think you can wait until you have cobwebs. The phone won't ring.
Wendy, Tashina Arnold, I was at an event, and she said that it was 13 years before the end of Martin, and Everybody Loves Chris.
Yes.
She said 13 years.
That doesn't make any sense. If she had been on a big white show, they would have put her on another show right after that. If she was a white actress.
I mean, I was just talking to a friend about Charlie Sheen, and, you know, he's like exploding right before our eyes. And my friend was telling me, you know, oh, well, you know, as soon as he's off of this show, he's going to go on another show. He's going to make $5 million an episode. I mean, you know, you're exactly right. There are opportunities there that, you know, that we don't have, and we have to be proactive. We've got to create our own content, and we have to get our content to our viewers.
But what you said is so right. It's as if we have our own network there. We have BET, we have TV One, and we're, even as our own people, we're looking at it going, that's not as good as this. I really want to be on the big network, and we have to go, no, we need to support this.
At the same time, I think it would be a mistake to only, you know, serve our community.
Of course.
Our stories have to go out.
But I think the key, though,
our stories are American stories,
is that we don't denigrate what we have to say, oh, it's not as good as.
We can't think of it as less than.
This is another option. Wendy, go ahead.
And it is very important for America to experience the black community, because this creates diversity and acceptance and inclusion. And that's what has to happen in America.
TV1online.com